Welcome. Okay, wait.
Who's saying it?
I said it last time, yeah?
Okay, so I'll say it.
Okay.
Welcome to the Dillweed Society Film Podcast. My name is Isabella, and my favorite movie is Exit Through the Gift Shop.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the better, documentary movies that I can remember from the past 2 decades.
I'm a big fan of documentaries. I'm so glad that we watched that young.
It has changed so much, though. Its meaning, you know? I think that Banksy is very different in 2022 than he was so subversive back then, and now he's, so commodified, you know?
Oh my god, yeah. One of my other favorite documentaries is The Price of Everything, which I think goes hand in hand with that. But yeah, now Banksy has, art exhibits. I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah, he's a sellout.
Yeah, it happens.
My name is Max, and my favorite movie is Rocket Man.
I like Rocket Man.
Yeah.
As far as, musical biopics go, I'm a fan.
I think it's my favorite musical biopic that has come out in the past, 2 decades.
Elvis?
The Elvis one is actually really good and might challenge it, but I think Rocket Man is better paced than Elvis.
Yeah, I remember loving Rocket Man when it came out. Taron Egerton.
He's good. He hasn't been in that much since then.
I know.
Because he was in the Kingsman series. That's, it. And then he was in Sing and Sing 2.
Who was he in Sing?
He's the monkey in Sing.
Oh my god, of course. I can't believe I forgot that. My roommate is obsessed with Sing. I think she has the rat from Sing right here.
The rat?
Right.
Who voices the rat? Seth MacFarlane. No.
Seth MacFarlane.
Evil. I'm gonna, get some holy water after saying his name.
Wait, what's wrong with Seth MacFarlane?
He just created Family Guy.
Oh.
That's, his thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why is his hair is a U shape?
We can't keep talking about him. He's gonna hear us.
I'm sorry. He's gonna... He's like Voldemort.
So what are we talking about today, though? What movie are we talking about today?
I was trying to make a connection about, rats.
About
but
rats.
I couldn't make one. Oh, speaking... You know how we're worried about Seth MacFarlane coming down when we talk poorly of him? I'm also worried about... We're talking about Don't Worry, Darling. We haven't really... I don't think that we're going to get into the drama, I would say. We're just going to focus mainly on...
You do a little sprinkle.
Yeah, because I think the drama gives insight into why this film turned out the way it is. But if you want to know, the majority of the drama... I don't know. Maybe look it up. It's really interesting.
Yeah. If it becomes relevant, we can talk about it. Because I do think that the drama, there is drama about this movie, as we implied. Yeah. It colored the way that I went into the movie and actually made the movie better because my expectations of it were so low on the ground that, it jumped over. It stepped over my expectations. So yeah, I think that does play an effect, but I think we should try and talk about the movie without talking about the context surrounding it, at least a little bit, because I do think that really changed how I interpreted the movie or how I viewed the movie.
Yeah. Do you want to give a synopsis?
Sure. A 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that this glamorous community may be hiding disturbing secrets. I think that's accurate. What do you think? That's a good...
Yeah, I don't know how else I would describe it, because you don't want to give too much away. Going into it, at least from the trailers, I think the trailers, they repurposed some footage that meant something else in the context of the film. And so, going in, I thought it was, going to be a lot different. I thought I knew what this movie was because of all the drama and how much I was reading about it. But then... as it turned out, I, didn't know a lot of it.
I agree. Yeah, that was my experience.
Florence Pugh is married to Harry Styles in this utopian society, and the leader of the dystopian society is Chris Pine's character. And there's neighbors and stuff, but basically it's, a recreation of, the 50s, aesthetic.
Is it a recreation or is it the 50s? This is something. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It is a recreation because it's a utopian experimental community.
But they don't have cell phones in this community.
Yeah, in the 50s they didn't have cell phones.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I had trouble figuring out like when it was set when I was watching it. Like when I was watching it, you know, starting out.
Yeah, and I also was thinking, like, there is one scene, like, you know, the party scene? It's very much, like, 20s vibe, and I didn't know whether that was, one, cluing us to the fact that this isn't actually the 50s, and that was just, like, a mistake in their part, or two, maybe in the 50s they just had, like, 20s parties, like how we have, like, 2000s parties. I'm not aware, but, like, that was something that I noticed, because everyone's dressed, like a flapper, and they have like that big performing like stage. Very 20s.
And
anyway,
the music is very 20s too. It's like 1920s jazz.
And the tap dancing, the tap dancing in that scene, I was like, they're trying to make him look good. Like, Harry Styles is a fine dancer.
Were they trying to make him look good? And the tap dancing,
I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he should have gotten lessons or something, because it didn't look that good to me.
Did you feel
I was
like
you're just doing a flip?
It's very hard to understand whether they intended things to be intentional or not. Like, I don't know. This is like a motif that I was experiencing throughout watching a lot of the movie, is like, this looks bad and I don't like this. Do they want me not to like this, or to find this cringe, or to like think that this is like bad?
Yeah. And I think like what's difficult about it now is like, as a filmmaker, you're always gonna use those mistakes to benefit the narrative, and like you can kind of redirect it, and I think that's a lot of what Olivia Wilde is doing right now, and kind of like just doing damage control, saying like, oh, that's kind of the point, you know. Like, I think Olivia Wilde described a lot of the drama that was happening and then related it back to the movie, and I'm like, that's the best thing that you could do in that scenario, and I think that's really a smart thing to do. But at the same time, like, it's really just not a great movie, and I don't know. Do you think this is like the worst film that we've talked about so far?
No.
I can't remember.
No, I don't think it is. I think that Fresh is absolutely the worst movie that we saw. I rated that a lot lower than I rated this one.
I think this is the worst movie that we've seen.
There are redeemable aspects of this movie.
Sure. Yeah. I just think at the end of the day, I mean, and we'll go into this probably in the spoiler section, but like at the end of the day, it just felt very hollow to me, I think.
I like it less the more I think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, it wants you to think about it.
And it's very hard for me as an audience member to trust that the questions that I have about it have an answer.
Yeah, without like stretching.
Exactly. And we can go through all the individual parts, because I really like want to pick your brain about some of these. Like, why did... Anyway, I would not recommend going and seeing this movie. Just a preliminary, I would say it's worth coming and listening to the podcast before you see it. That's my post overview opinion.
Yeah, I think like with films like this, like kind of getting a vibe for like what the film is as a whole might honestly make your viewing of it better, because going in thinking I knew what it was and then being shocked the entire time, I was like, this just feels wrong. Like, it feels weird to me. Yeah. And so, yeah, but I do want to say, like, in terms of the good acting, Florence Pugh carries this movie along with Chris Pine. I think like them two are so good. Like, Florence Pugh, obviously, like, world-class actress. She's always... I rewatched Midsummer last night with my housemates, so it's just reminding me, like, how great she is as an actor. But then Chris Pine, there was that one scene, like, his first big monologue, where oh my god, okay, so it's when one of the neighbors in the neighborhood, like, speaks out against, like, she's kind of understanding, as Florence Pugh's character is understanding, that this world is like not how it should be, and Chris Pine, as the leader of this community, has to like redirect, and she says, why are we here? We shouldn't be here. And Chris Pine says, you know, that's a great question, like, this is a very important question of why are we here. And then he goes into the mission, and I'm like, that's exactly what Olivia Wilde is doing. She's redirecting all this like actual criticism of the movie into her own meaning of the movie and like forcing us down this path of like understanding
That's
it.
so true.
So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And Chris Pine is like, I can't believe we haven't seen him in a villain role before, because he plays a villain so well in this. The previous things that I've seen him in were Princess Diaries 2 and the Star Trek reboot and Wonder Woman.
Into the Woods.
And Into the Woods. Those are all the ones that I can remember with him in it.
I love his performance in Into the Woods is my favorite performance, I think, of his.
Yeah. You know what? Instead of Armory Hammer, he should have been...
The Winklevoss?
No, not the Winklevoss. The older guy in Call Me By Your Name. He would have been better in that role.
No!
He would have.
Really?
I think so.
I don't think he looks... I think too old, I think.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, he is older.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Like when he started his big monologues, like every time I was so engaged with what he was saying.
Yeah.
Whereas like literally like every time Harry Styles was not, it was like I had like, what's that thing babies have with like object permanence? Where like every time Harry Styles left the frame, I was like, okay, Harry Styles isn't in this movie. Like, and then he would come back and I'm like, oh my god, Harry Styles is in this movie?
Yeah.
I was like, because his acting is just so forgettable. And his character, like, I think they edited out a lot of his dialogue because he's not a great actor, but that leaves it, like, so empty because he's supposed to be this driving force. And his chemistry with Florence Pugh is supposed to be the thing that keeps this whole system together. And yet... the fact that so much of his stuff had to be edited out, like, leaves it so distant. And it's hard for me to, like, really believe in their relationship and their love for each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Like, I don't know. He was the character there. This is, like, a little bit of the history of the film. The character was originally supposed to be played by Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Right. And I can see the way that this character has, like, tragic features of himself. It's almost as though Harry Styles doesn't know whether to play the character as goofy and, like, fumbling or as aspirational. Like, the character is so malleable from scene to scene, being, like, forceful or idiotic or silly. You know, like, it doesn't feel like he has a character. It feels like he's like a cardboard cutout that just does whatever he needs to do to move the plot along. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think Shia LaBeouf in this role would have been a lot better, obviously, because I think Shia LaBeouf is actually a genuinely good actor. I know he's hard to work with, but I can't remember the last time I saw a film where an actor was so bad that I just, like, or so inexperienced. I don't want to say, like, bad. It just... his lack of experience, I think, you know, it harms the film so much.
Yeah. We both saw this in theaters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were people in your theater laughing during the movie?
Yeah. I remember, like, certain points, like, me and there were, like, some girls behind me, and we would both, like, laugh at the same parts. And I remember, like, once the movie ended, like, everyone kind of just... because it cuts to the credits and it's just silent for a minute. Yeah. And a lot of people just like like scoffed, like okay, like the girl behind me was just like, okay, like it was so anticlimactic. Yeah. And it's just like, but I think my theater was also very engaged with the movie. I think particularly in the final scenes, which we won't get to yet, but people were like talking to the screen, which I thought was really fun. I love when people do that.
It's a very talkable movie.
Yeah.
I was not bothered by other people talking in the theater during
it.
I thought it was hilarious. Added so much to the movie. Yeah,
because the entire time you're like, Florence Pugh will continue giving to, you know, the society and, like, giving to Harry Styles' character, and everyone in the theater is like, bitch, like, wake the fuck up. Like, he does not care. Mm-hmm. And so I love movies where you can just talk. When will Florence Pugh not be put in a movie where her male counterpart is a douchebag? I think it's just because I saw Midsummer last night.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean about them being kind of similar, though, is that it's both, like, her just totally being betrayed by by her partner, like both of these movies.
Yeah.
And by someone who really doesn't care about her well-being, and isn't a good enough person to actually say that. She was in Little Women, right?
Well, she gets betrayed by Laurie too.
Oh, true.
For real, what is it about Florence Pugh that's like, a man will harm her?
She didn't get to do her big frown in this movie the way that she did in Midsommar. Harry tries to do it. He goes, "Our lives!
Our life together!
Our life together!"
Okay, can I say something though?
Yeah.
Because there's parts of this movie in which his accent is very minimized. I will just say that. I won't say, because we're not talking spoilers yet. But it was very interesting because I was like, did they film that, like, first? I think they had to, like, what do you call that? Like, retcon the fact that he was British.
Yeah.
Because there's several points in the movie where it says nationality British. But there's certain parts of the movie where he sounds like he's trying to do an American accent. And I think that's really interesting because I was like, why in the first place would a British man want to take part in this 1950s American virtual reality, I guess?
Let's call it here, because we're getting into it. We are going to spoil the big spoiler in the movie, I think.
Yeah. There's a big spoiler at the end.
But it's worth talking about. There's good stuff to talk about.
Alright, so if you want to skip the spoilers, go to 45 minutes and 9 seconds. That's up to you. You have been warned. Okay.
So, the whole world is a virtual reality game, right? In the real world, Harry Styles is American. But in the virtual world, he chooses to have a British nationality.
I don't think so. I think in the real world, he's also supposed to be British, because I think they mention that at some point. She's like, "Oh, your British boyfriend," something is said there.
I don't think so.
I
thought that he had British. He had an American accent in the real
That's
world.
what made me think that they filmed that first when they intended for him to be American, and then he just couldn't get the accent down, and so then they were just like, okay, just do a British accent. We'll just like fix it in post.
And they put the nationality British. It said preferred nationality. It said like chosen nationality on the form.
But that's the retcon. Yeah,
I agree, because he couldn't hack it for the majority of the movie, but for like 2 scenes.
Why the fuck would he choose to be British anyway? Like, that's so stupid.
Okay, I think that actually does
Harry
get
Styles
to like.
Is British.
It's like, well, he doesn't like himself, right? He has like acne scars on his face, and he like has like long hair that is unkempt, and he doesn't take a shower.
It's hilarious to see Harry Styles look like that.
I thought that was the best part of the movie, honestly. That was the part that I thought was like the most interesting, at least. Like, he actually was acting like someone who wasn't himself, who had character traits. And that, I think, made the acting better. But yeah, I think that there's also like the reason why he chose to be British in my mind was just because he doesn't want to be himself. He's really unhappy with who he is. And so he imagines that being a British man is part of like his fantasy or whatever.
I guess so. It's just like really weird.
It's not explained.
I think you can, like, if you want to stretch that, sure. But I definitely think when Shia LaBeouf was in the role, he would not have chosen to be British.
Oh no.
So I think, like, you can stretch it to mean that, sure. But I think there's definitely the case that Harry Styles just couldn't get down the accent. And that's just clear.
He says like 5 sentences in the in American. Can we go through sort of like the general like plot, so that, because there are a lot of parts of it that I would like to hit that I thought were ridiculous.
So beginning stages are just like setting up this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she talks to the neighbors, she goes to the parties, she hosts parties. I think up until her neighbor kills herself.
Every day, all of their husbands, like, they all live in this cul-de-sac or whatever. It's a town in the middle of a desert.
Yeah.
All of their husbands...
Like Burning Man.
It's just like
set
Burning
up like
Man.
Burning Man. Yeah.
But 1950s, like, Burning Man.
1950s Burning Man.
Because it's all, like...
real.
It's like it's a suburb without a town. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And all of their husbands all go to work at the exact same time to the exact same location. They all drive their like 1950s cars there, which were very beautiful. And nobody knows what they do except all the women like get to sit around all day and talk about what they think their husbands do. Right. Like they have lives.
They're not supposed to think about it though.
They're not supposed to think about it, but they like who
But,
wouldn't,
like,
you know?
How can you not? Yeah.
Harry Styles and Florence Pugh, they're married. Harry's like an engineer of some sort on the Victory Project. Why was it named that? I don't know. I thought that the term Victory Project would make sense, you know, at the end of like why is it named that? I don't think it is.
I think they just needed like a kitschy, like just easy something that they can put in because the tagline for the film was "Welcome to Victory," and it's like, okay, but what else? It
brings this question like victory over what? You know,
right.
Victory over women, I guess, is what it is. Like that's what I got out of that scene later on where they're like, whose world is this? Our world, and it's all the men, you know?
Yeah.
I think that is the only reading of victory that you can get. But it's hard for me to imagine that they would explicitly say that, you know?
Like, okay, so the project is created probably by, like, Chris Pine is probably just, like, a guy in his basement who just, like, is kind of an incel. And I think this project appeals to people like him, like how Harry Styles was, I think. And I think the idea that like a virtual reality kind of place could be more like this could exist in a type of reality where like appealing to men who are, I don't know, like it's interesting to me. But then also I really appreciated Olivia Wilde's character in the movie, how we learn that she is why she is in this project. And I think that like brought a lot of insight into why someone would want to be in this.
Right.
And I think that's really great. My question is, like, to the men who are a part of this, are their girlfriends part of the reality? Like, how did they get the women? Because, like, I was like, the entire time I was like, how does Harry Styles have Florence Pugh? Like, how did he get it?
It seems like
her as her girlfriend.
Like they must have started dating prior to her getting that or becoming a doctor and him sitting on his computer listening to Andrew Tate all day.
Right. But then, like, I think when I'm thinking about their audience for like Victoria's audience in terms of who they advertise this system to, it's like most of those men I feel like
like did they abduct somebody? Like
right. That's where like a system like Blade Runner, which I think has flaws as well, but gives more of an insight into how this world could function. You know what I mean?
Right, and in having that metaphor explores better the way that women are objectified in the real world, right?
Exactly.
Like Blade Runner's use of robots as sex workers says a lot about how like the real world handles that profession in a way that this movie just like doesn't explore or can't explore because it's not fully fleshed out. And it leaves us to sort of figure it out on our own. Like, is Bunny married to Nick Kroll?
Yeah.
Okay, so like they're both.
And I don't know in reality if they're actually married, right? Maybe they were just paired up in the machine or in the virtual reality. We don't really know how it works, and I think they want us to kind of be in the position of Florence Pugh, right? Where we don't know much about what this is or why, but it does leave us like, I think because we don't have that connection to Harry Styles as I think we're supposed to believe Florence Pugh does.
Yeah.
It just leaves us like very disconnected from the entire thing. I think trying to get us to see this system from the viewpoint of a victim of it is great. I love that idea, but how do you get us to believe that if we don't have that same connection to someone else in, like, I guess, like, why are we supposed to believe in this, you know?
Yeah. is there any perspective to like explain why the people are or the stories of these people opting into this world, other than the one we know, which is Harry Styles, like kidnapping his girlfriend and like tying her up so that she's always in this simulation.
Right.
Yeah, and that brings up this question of like, what happens to Margaret, the woman who kills herself in the simulation because she realizes somehow, like, does she get out? Does she die?
If you die in the simulation, you die. So she killed her. She died. Right.
That makes sense. Her kid was a simulation. Remember, her son gets taken away at the beginning of the movie because she like takes him out to the desert to try and get out together.
Oh, and he disappears because he's a simulation. Yeah.
It's unclear though, because it's like Harry's like, at the end of the movie, Harry's like, no, it's okay. Like, there aren't any real kids in the simulation. I don't know. Like, it's that seems like a lie that he tells himself, you know?
I don't know. It made sense to me, because for Olivia Wilde's character, she's like, my kids are here. My kids are like here to me, they're real here, whereas they died in real life. And I think I don't know much about how virtual reality works, but like it feels weird to me that there is a headquarters, and if you go towards that headquarters, like, it kept saying, like, hazardous. Like, why would they have that method of leaving, I guess?
That
like,
you have
there
to,
should
like,
be... I feel like it's just poorly set up.
It is so poorly set up. Like, why wouldn't you need to enter, like, some passcode or something?
Right. Like, why is it not just external? And also... What are the men doing there? Like, we still don't know what they're working on. They said weapons, but
well, they
like,
don't.
What does that mean?
They don't work on anything. They leave the simulation every day to go to their day jobs, right?
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. So like he has a day job, a 40-hour-a-week day job in the real world that he does to pay for them to live in the simulation.
Oh my gosh! Wait, what clued you into to realize?
Because he says, every day I have to go away and work. And I hate every minute of it, but I do it so that we get to stay here.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh my god, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay.
So he has to strap himself in every night after work so that they can spend the evening together.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, because that like plays into, I think, this fantasy that the simulation gives them, which is, it's not about being powerful or about exerting power over their partner. It's about their partner being dependent on them. It's about having a woman who's dependent on them, right? And that's what they want, is to provide for their family, which means like that's why he feels like emasculated in their world. Is in the real world, Florence Pugh's a medical doctor and he is like a computer programmer or something, but he just sort of like sits on his computer and doesn't do much. And he could live a very happy life being like a house husband, right? Like cleaning up and making the place nice, but he can't do that. And so he wants to take away her life and make her dependent on him. He wants to basically switch roles because he doesn't like being in the dependent state. And he thinks that that's giving her something. I don't know. It's just so on the nose, that metaphor.
Yeah, it just seems like it's an interesting start. I think if they were to make it work, it just feels like it needs so many more rewrites. Like, the idea is there. Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. It just feels weak, you know?
Yeah, it feels like unfinished.
And I think also, like, Olivia Wilde, you know, she's all about, like, female empowerment and, like, sure, that's fine. But I think at least in her interviews where she was talking about the sexual scenes in this film, like, she's like very focused on, like, quote unquote the female gaze. But in this movie, this whole system is centered around men. So, like, it doesn't make sense for Harry Styles to be performing those sex acts. Like, it just doesn't make sense, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like Olivia Wilde wanted to see Harry Styles eat someone out. Like, it really felt like it did not fit. It didn't fit. And it happens multiple times. Like, if you're gonna include a sexual scene in the film, like, you gotta take into account what the narrative is, right? And I don't think you needed to have sex scenes in this. I really just feel like Olivia Wilde wanted that because she's dating Harry Styles.
Yes.
Not to like...
That's something we didn't talk about. They are dating.
Yeah, they are dating, and it feels like she just didn't give him enough direction as the director, you know?
Yeah.
I want to read this tweet that I found because I was looking up what people said about the film. And Olivia Wilde wrote for Variety that she said, Olivia Wilde discusses her approach to focus on female pleasure in sex scenes in Don't Worry Darling, Men Don't Come in This Film. She declares, only women here. And then someone quote tweets it and says, I have to bring this back because knowing the context of the film, this genuinely is an insane thing to say. Don't Worry Darling is a film about male pleasure, period. To say that there's any feminist guiding principle in the story is remarkably silly, and to paint sex in the narrative as some sort of liberating act, girl, like, it does not make sense. And I think that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. And every time it would happen, because it happens multiple times, I was just like, why? Like, what's the purpose here?
Right.
It doesn't work.
I mean, the only possible reading, I guess, is that Harry Styles, his character, gets pleasure from feeling like the other person is like Florence Pugh is dependent on him, and so like cares about making her life or like providing for her. And I guess you could see that as like he cares about, you know, her pleasure.
But I just think it's so weak. Like, you could
it
make
is
that
super
argument,
weak. That's like
but
the
you have
only
to
I'm like
stretch it.
really stretching here.
You
Because
really
in reality,
stretch it. Yeah, so...
that type of person would want to be like, you know, the center of like everything.
Dominant.
Right.
This whole thing is about him feeling insecure.
Right. Him feeling like,
right? And
yeah.
I think, yeah, like caring about a woman's pleasure is usually seen from men as being insecure. Like, as if a person watches Andrew Tate all the time, they're not going to be thinking about that
Exactly.
kind of thing. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it just does not work. Yeah.
Right. Like he listens to Chris Pine's like podcast. That's like his thing.
Exactly. Yeah, Chris Pine literally has a podcast that everyone listens to and is like brainwashed by.
I think Chris Pine isn't an incel in this. I think he's like a pickup artist.
Yeah.
You know? But like incels and pickup artists are like the same. They believe the same things about women. It's just one of them thinks that they're never going to like, you know, never going to like be attracted, a woman be attracted to them. And the other one believes that they can like game the system.
Yeah. It just feels like it's so obvious to a point where you have to end up asking questions, and once you start asking those questions, like, it all falls apart.
Right.
You know?
I have a list of other questions.
Yeah.
Could I go through some of them?
List them.
What is the plane? What is the plane?
The plane?
The plane that crashes in the movie. What is that?
What is the plane?
Why is it there? That's the whole point of the movie.
I don't know.
That's the inciting incident of the movie, and there's no reason why it's in the simulation.
True. Wait, what is the... So, it was the son's plane. Okay, it looked like Margaret's son's toy plane. I don't know the significance of it, though. Like, and also, I guess because Florence Pugh keeps having visions, so maybe she envisioned
That's my
the
second
plane,
question.
I can't remember. Did the bus driver see the plane?
He didn't, but he also, like, she pointed at it after it had gone behind the mountain. And
right, so maybe it didn't exist.
Maybe it never existed, but then that brings me to my second question.
Yeah.
Which is like, why is she having these hallucinations?
Yeah.
And to me, that's like this big question, because the choice to make her have all of these hallucinations and to doubt her own sanity, I think has a big effect on the audience and on like our read of the movie living through it, because it brings into question, like, is she just schizophrenic? Like, is the entire movie the belief that she's in a simulation? Is that in her mind? Because that seems very plausible based on like the fact that she's totally disconnected from reality, you know? But then it's validated at the end of the movie. I just think that it really undermines the entire film, you know?
Yeah, I think like she's gone through this cycle a few times where she's realized something's wrong, and then they'd have to like remove her memory or like restore her. I feel like she's maybe gone through that a couple times, so like each time she gets more, she like remembers more. And but then it's like, why is Florence Pugh the only one? And it's like, is it saying something about like her being more intelligent, like because she's a doctor? I think that thinking about that would like tear apart the whole feminist aspects of this movie. It's like, no, I think most people in this scenario would like sooner or later, it's so flawed that like sooner or later everyone's gonna find out.
And it's true, because they do sort of talk about it with each other. The only reason why the women don't actually like realize that the inconsistencies in the world is because Bunny's character keeps steering them away from it, because she knows that they're in a simulation. She knows. And she keeps saying like, guys, everything is perfect here. The only thing that they ask us not to do is to go out into the like nuclear zone.
At the end, when Gemma Chan's character, like, I don't know who she is in this reality. Like, is she a complete, like, virtual creation? Is she an actual, like, Chris Pine's actual wife in real life? Like, I don't know who she is, but, or, like, and it really feels insignificant when she has that switch at the end and she chooses to, spoiler, stab him. And, like, it's just so shocking because you're like, why did she have that shift? And also, why did she go along with this for so long?
Right, what made her change her mind?
Yeah.
Because the previous scene that she's in, she, like, scolds Florence Pugh for saying that they're in a simulation and that Chris Pine is controlling all of them. What was with all of the things exploding at the end when she walks out? All of the lights outside of their houses exploding? I thought it was like the Matrix, right? Where like suddenly she knows she's in a simulation so she can control it.
And everything breaks out.
But that's not the case. Because like she doesn't have Matrix powers or anything. So it just wasn't explained.
Yeah. We've talked, like, we've mentioned connections to a few other movies, like Blade Runner and Matrix. I think it's very interesting. Like, it feels very much Truman Show meets, like, White Woman's Get Out meets Stepford Wives.
White Woman's Get Out is a good description, actually.
Yeah, it feels like Olivia Wilde was, like, saw Jordan Peele's Get Out and was like, you know, this could happen with gender too. Like, it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like,
I mean,
no,
she's right.
it's not
in some sense,
sure.
But like, yeah, it is very derivative.
But it is very derivative, and I think there's good elements to this.
Yeah.
But they're just not fleshed out at all. And I think give it like another year and like recasting, it could be pretty good. You know, Olivia Wilde is I think a pretty great filmmaker. I mean, good filmmaker. I don't know if I'd say great. She did one other movie that I liked.
One really good movie.
Yeah, one really good. But also, she didn't write that movie.
Oh, did she write this?
She didn't write this, and that's why I'm like, maybe it's not Olivia Wilde's fault. Like, maybe it's like, at the same time, like, you're the director. I don't know if this was written before it was picked up by Olivia Wilde, or if Olivia Wilde hired someone else to write it. But it just feels very disconnected. And there's 3 writers on this, and I don't know.
The Van Dyke siblings and Katie Silberman, Katie Silberman wrote Booksmart.
Right.
And has written a bunch of other movies that Olivia Wilde has done.
Yeah. I really don't know, but it just seems very disconnected, and I think disjointed. And it feels like everyone in this film had a different idea of what it would be, and it just didn't come together. Another great comparison that someone said is White Mirror. Like Black Mirror, but White Mirror.
Talking about the anachronism of the space, the 1950s world, I think that it's interesting that it was that this recreation was integrated, and I don't know if that fits with like my understanding of incel culture as it is now.
Right, that's something else I was gonna think about. Yeah, if you're gonna frame this world as like 50, you want to return to like the 50s era, wouldn't you also, you know, think about how
the people who run it are racist? Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that it might have been another Olivia Wilde moment where she's like, I want to create like a progressive film, a progressive feminist gaze film, a progressive film where we imagine what.
But it doesn't work.
The 1950s
given the
were like,
context.
yeah, because this is a dystopia. It's a.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it should be like a racist dystopia. I just think that it decreases the quality of the film. going back to like the 1950s like society, I think that it's interesting. This is one thing I like about the movie, is that it's interesting the way that it portrays the main characters, or like the men who build this simulation. You know, it imagines that they want to move back to the 1950s, when women were dependent on them, which is explicitly the case for a lot of people today. It's a lot of people do like say that they wish we were back in the 50s when like the world was better. It's interesting from a feminist like historical perspective, because it's not as though the 1950s existed and then like randomly women started getting rights in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and that's what like caused the world to change. Like the women's rights movement, like the second wave feminist movement, existed as a product of the dissatisfaction of people living in the 1950s culture.
Right.
And they imagine that you can just go back in time and set the world to like remain that way forever, not understanding that the reason why the world isn't that way anymore is because women were unsatisfied with how it was structured.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is like a really good insight into the movie and the like flawed logic of the people in it. Yeah, I liked that about it.
What was your audience like? We talked a little bit about it, but what points did they laugh at?
There's a lot of laughing. The
Our Life scene. Our
life together.
It's like his one moment to like show that he's a good actor, and yet
he fumbles.
He fumbles his bag hard.
I can't remember any of the specific scenes. The scene with like him doing the tap dancing on the stage and just sort of like flipping over. And like he was supposed to look foolish, right? He must have been. I hope he was.
No, I don't think so. What? Also, like, why would why would that be like a ceremonial thing? Like, okay, like you get promoted, here's the ceremonial tap dance. Like, that doesn't make any sense. I think Harry Styles just like wanted to dance, or like maybe it's like Olivia Wilde's like, okay, maybe he can't act, but you know what? He's good at performing, so let's make him perform.
Yeah.
But then it has to be like, it has to fit in with the time, so they're like, okay, do a tap dance. But it's like, Harry Styles can't freaking tap dance. He's just like doing flips, and he looks weird, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, what does it even mean?
Yeah.
In the final scene where Florence Pugh is running up the mountain and getting chased by those men in the red, and she like stops sometimes, like me and the girls behind me, like we were all just like, go like,
yeah,
like,
we were all yelling.
She falls at a certain point, she like stops
and she's like looking back,
and she looks back, and everyone's like the fuck, like go, like what are you doing? And it doesn't even make sense. Like in that moment she would just continue running. Like it doesn't make sense for her to like stop and look over. It doesn't, there's no motivation for that. And even at the end when she's like almost gonna step through,
she still like pauses.
Yeah, why would you pause? It doesn't make any sense, because the film relies on her connections to being there, but I think it's very clear that she doesn't have that anymore. Like,
she
once it
killed Harry,
makes that realization. Once she makes that realization, like, that's it. You know, like.
Do you think it would have been stronger if he didn't die? If he was like knocked out for a second, but he was also following her, asking her to stay there?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Yeah.
Because like she has a flashback right as she's about to go in, and he's like, "I'll love you," and then she's like, "Always."
Yeah.
But he's already dead at that point, so there's nothing for her to like go back to at that point. I don't know. It really weakens that.
It's like this film didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, was it dystopian? Was it horror? Was it thriller? Was it? I don't. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Like
those nightmarish, like Eraserhead type visions. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you be envisioning that? And it would make more sense if it was a memory of hers, right? Not like, I don't know.
But it's not.
The ideas are there. I think if it were filmed differently, it would be stronger.
Whatever Olivia Wilde saw in the script, I don't think comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I'm thinking about, like, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind type film style. Like, we're over the course of the film, we're clued into what has actually happened, and we get these flashbacks, but they're like from a very narrow perspective, and I think over the course of the film we kind of understand it fully. I don't know. I just think it just needed to be more fleshed out and stronger.
And the reveal just like it makes the movie worse, I think, than if they were.
It feels really weird.
It's cheap.
Yeah. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Okay, I also gave it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
I thought that would be kind of high based on the discussion we just had.
Well,
but there are good parts of it. There are good aspects.
There's good parts. Florence Pugh and Chris Pine were really good, and I think some of the ideas were pretty cool, but there was a lot about it that I had fun watching it. It's like part of theater experience. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's a good talk through it, kind of rag on it movie. It's fun in that respect. It's a laughable movie which positions itself as a horror movie and takes itself quite seriously in a way that the audience shouldn't.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that other people go see it?
If you're curious about it, maybe I would recommend it. It's not... If you had to choose between this and something else in theaters right now, I would choose something else. But, if you're curious about all the hype about it, sure, why not? And then tell us what you think if you're listening to this, because I'd love to hear other perspectives on it.
If someone really loves this, I would actually really like to hear... I think a movie can be redeemed by talking to someone who actually really enjoys it.
I think so, too. Yeah.
Well, that was Don't Worry, Darling. Shall we move on to our recommendations?
Yeah. If you've been listening so far and you aren't a Dilly associate and you have an interest in movies, which I hope that you do since you're listening to this, all it means is you get to nominate and vote on films each year, and we are currently in our nomination stage, so super easy to apply, takes 2 seconds, it's completely free. Go to apply.dillweedsociety.com, and if you want to just learn about us, you can visit our website at dillweedsociety.com, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the episode.
I am going to do not a recommendation because I haven't seen a new movie since the last one, but a anticipation recommendation. Well, it's just a movie that I don't think a lot of people have heard about and that I'm kind of excited about, and I'm seeing it tonight.
What is it?
It is the movie Bros.
Oh, yeah, I've heard great things about it,
I know. I really want to roll the dice on it. It seems like a really fun rom-com that's like witty in a way that we've talked about some movies this year being, living very in the present, which I think is kind of cool. I'm excited to see it, and if it's not on your radar, I would look it up. It seems really cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna recommend... It's called Funny Pages. It's a new film put out by A24. It's about like a teenage cartoonist who kind of like is trying to find his way in the world. It has all the A24 aspects, so read that, take that with from what am I trying to say? Do with that what you will. It's very crude, so I'm gonna say, like, if you have a hard time with crude things, maybe don't watch it. But I think it's a really good narrative. If you like the Safdie brothers films, if you like any of their films, it's very much in line with the way that their filming style is. Very mellow. It's based on people and conversations that people have rather than like any greater thing. But I think it's an interesting method of filmmaking that I respect, even if I don't love.
Where can you watch that?
I watched it on... If you want to email me, I have a link. Allegedly.
Is it in theaters, though?
I think it's in select theaters, but I don't really know. It's not really showing anywhere.
Bros is only in theaters right now, and it's in most theaters. It's at the Regal Majestic and AMC near us.
Yeah. Are you watching the Kardashians? Did you
watch it? I was going to watch it with
night?
my roommates last night. I have not seen it yet because I got home at like 11 p.m.
Wow.
But I do
really
want to watch it. Yeah, I'm excited. The first season of the Kardashians show, did that come out this year?
I can't remember.
I know that it ended this year because I remember watching the last episode. First episode date, April 14th, 2022.
First season of a TV show. Okay, that's the thing. We don't know with the by the time this comes out, we'll the Impermanent category will be announced. But let me just look right now what the leading choice is. because we're gonna pick two, but it's been going back and forth for a minute. So
I'm actually gonna vote right now.
You haven't voted yet?
No, I was waiting until the end of the week to vote.
Why?
I don't know. Because I procrastinate.
Okay. This is kind of crazy. This is not what it was like a few days ago. It's like neck and neck between four different ones.
Do you think that Don't Worry Darling should win the Women Supporting Women category? Drive!
Yo, she ran most of that in ballet flats. That's fucking crazy to me. Like, it panned down to her feet and she was wearing ballet flats. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. That's, like, harder than barefoot.
Why didn't she take her shoes off?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my question. Okay, here's the deal. So we have 2 tied with 4 top votes, and we have 2 tied for 3 top votes. Well, it might change, but I'll cut it out of this podcast if it does. But I think what our categories are going to be is Best Film Poster and Best First Season of a TV Series, which I am so excited about. I'm so excited about that.
Me too.
I think it opens up a lot of different categories, or a lot of different films that would not get nominated otherwise. So that's great. Thank you to everyone who voted. That's so exciting.
We have a lot of new members too.
Yeah, a lot of new members. You can still join if you want, but nominations will begin when this podcast are out. So you have from now until the last Sunday in January, which is January 29th, 2023, to submit your general nominations, which is any films in the categories that you think deserve to be nominated. And then after that, of course, I will be working with a few of the associates. Last year we had a great team, so hopefully this year we will come together to create that list for you all. I'm so excited. You know, the nomination season, and like there's so many good movies coming out, and a lot of bad ones too. You know, Blonde got released on Netflix, and it's a real shit show. I do not recommend anyone see it. Please, if like, it's really bad. It goes against everything that Marilyn believed in, and it disrespects her a lot, and so it's just really horrible. But yeah, a lot of people are fumbling the bag, you know.
I really hope that Amsterdam doesn't do that.
Okay, people are talking about the director, who I think has been known to be very abusive on set.
Does he make good movies though?
Does he make good movies? You know, let's see. It is like a star cast. Like there's so many.
Taylor Swift is in that movie.
I know. Like I'm like wary because star casts, sometimes people rely too much on those, and
Chris Rock is coming back to the feature film stage.
Good for him.
Great for him.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next Monday.
Thanks so much for listening. Don't worry, darling.
I'm a little bit worried.